Hello, welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show, coming to you from Wildrose Brewery in Griffith, Indiana. With us today, we have several people. One thing I want to mention before we get started with the introductories, of course, you know, when we have to sub Kelly, we have to pull in a Chicago celebrity to do it. So Michael Puente, NPR WBEZ, is the NPR affiliate in Chicago. He covers all the Chicago area. He's only slightly busy lately, right? With the runoff, just a little bit. So appreciate you filling in for Kelly. And so why don't we just come down the line and introduce ourselves and let people know who you are and why you're here. Dave?
Yeah, my name's Dave Byers. I'm the Recreation Director at the Highland Parks and Recreation Department.
Mark Sharp, heart attack victim, and hosting a fundraiser.
Christopher Fabris. I'm a paramedic and firefighter for the Highland Fire Department.
Right, and so Mark, why don't you tell us about, first of all, what happened that caused us all to get together here, take it back a year,
Sure.
And tell us about the event.
So, a little over a year ago, a little under a year ago, I guess I should say, found myself working out at Lincoln Center, and basically after working out, kind of spent about 45 minutes in the gym at Lincoln Center, and was on the treadmill running, and basically had a sudden cardiac event, heart attack, and collapsed, and had to be resuscitated by staff at Lincoln Center and some gym members and teachers there at the time. So basically was running, didn't have any advance warning, didn't feel it coming on in any way or shape, and basically collapsed. Jake Steele, an attendant at the gym, was there and was able to start administering CPR, and someone had seen me kind of fall in the gym and had gone to her aerobics class and said, does anybody know CPR? We've got somebody who's collapsed. And so she went ahead and two people came in and they relieved Jake, who was doing CPR. I think at that point in time, maybe you were notified that we needed the AED machine. And after a while, I think that you were alerted, came and got the AED machine.
Correct.
Yeah.
You weren't really coherent at that point.
No,
so
I was a little out of it.
It's a little fuzzy, your memory, I'm sure, at that point. But I'm not here to take any credit for what happened. We had quick acting staff. Jake pulled you into position from what he said, started the compressions. We were fortunate enough to have Aziza Gill starting her class, which it all kind of happened as a freak occurrence. I'm usually not there that late on a Friday night. Aziza usually doesn't have class on a Friday night. She had a makeup class that night. So she happened to be there. She was alerted, came running in with one of her class participants, Ron Cruz, and together they were on either side of you performing compressions by the time I got in there, when I was alerted to the fact that this was happening in the fitness center. So when I got in there, I grabbed the AED off the wall, brought it over to you guys, and Aziz and I hooked it up to you and we fired it on, and it did its thing, and it shocked you twice, and it kind of brought you back.
So it was a team effort, and it was a perfect.
Yes.
And you said that you were thinking about going in on Saturday, were you not?
Well, I had been trying to get back in shape. My father had a heart attack when I was in junior high, about the same age as my son, who was with me that night, and I'd always known we've got a family history of heart disease, and so it's always been in the back of my mind that this was something that could happen to me. I'd been seeing a cardiologist, and being the age that I'm at, I was only 44 at the time, you tend to think, I'm still indestructible, and I run, I've been in, I've done half marathons, I've done this, I've done that. It seemed like something that was kind of distant. I wasn't in danger. And, went back to the gym, was feeling, I was feeling fat, to be honest. I mean, that's about the only warning sign I had, was that I felt fat, which seemed like a pretty appropriate feeling, all things considered. And so working out, I figured that I would just I really, it was a Friday night, wanted to get a workout in, you know, have a good time on the weekend, and convinced my son Andrew to come with, which he didn't really want to go, but I convinced him to come with, and thank goodness, because I think it was myself, my son, one other person, and then Jake in the gym. It was empty.
It was a slow Friday night,
Yeah.
which is typical.
Yeah.
But having the AED there was a godsend.
Oh, yeah.
And having it right
People
there.
who knew CPR, having 3 people in the building who knew CPR.
Right.
It was
And only
incredible.
one of them was supposed to be there, too. I mean, Jake was the only one who was scheduled that night. Everybody else, it was all just happenstance.
Things aligned perfectly for it to happen the way that it did,
Yeah.
and revive you the way that it did. And even Bill was there too, working on staff, and he was one of the 2 staff members that were calling 911 at the time. We had 2 making calls, and
Yeah, it was a scary event, let me tell you. From just a bystander, it was, you know, I saw you on the ground, I'm like, oh man. And I saw your son there, and, you know, the 911 operator was asking me questions, and I said, well, I can't talk to him right now. That's why I'm calling. And so, but boy, things happen out, and the response from both the fire department and the police department, they've sent quite a few squads there to make sure that the ambulance got out and on its way. And so it was. So when we talk about where this man is going to fill in here, and talk about the event that you thought about having.
You know, as a way of saying thank you, which it's hard to figure out exactly how you do that after an event like that, but one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that other people could benefit from life-saving skills by people in the community. So what we really wanted to do was throw an event, a night of fun, raise some funds, and help give back to first responders, as well as, you know, just the facilities where people typically engage in some activities where things can get a little bit, you know, hectic, you know, working out at the gym, at the schools, you know, and then for police and fire, they have to show up at scenes sometimes, and they need equipment that's in good working order, and of course they know CPR training, and they've got these skills. So what we really wanted to do was be able to give back to the community, so host some classes, and that's where Chris comes in. Chris is a certified paramedic and with the Highland Fire Department, and has agreed to help teach some courses. And so what we want to do is help fund some courses for the community in order to make sure that there's more and more people who know life-saving steps, in order to help, you know, if heaven forbid something happens to somebody they love, or, you know, they're somewhere where they can provide those type of skills.
So why don't you talk to us about the type of CPR, and from your experience as a fireman paramedic, you know, what you've witnessed over the years, how that can be a benefit to the community, and, you know, and also one other key question about AEDs in particular. One thing that, you know, I know from the fire department standpoint is fire extinguishers and fire readiness. Is there any particular requirement to check AEDs, or is that pretty much assuming that, I know that the Lincoln Center checks theirs because I see the post-it note when it was checked and so on, so they do a great job, but is there a requirement that...
Absolutely. There is a requirement. We change batteries once a year, just like you would change your smoke detector batteries. And every month we go through monthly checklists. Not only do we check AEDs, but we check the rest of the equipment on the apparatus. So it's very important that all the equipment stays mission ready.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity or the moment arises and we have to deploy the equipment, we know for certain that it's ready to go.
Yeah, awesome. So that really the fire department helps then the facilities check theirs, or is that something?
We check ours every month.
All right.
Every month.
Right. So tell us a bit about, you know, your role as far as providing the training.
I'm an instructor for the American Heart Association, and I teach several different disciplines. One of them happens to be CPR. CPR is very important. I think everybody should know it, no matter what your age. There's a lot of programs out there. They're teaching students in high school and grade school CPR. The more people that we can inform to recognize a cardiac event and to step in and perform chest compressions are the key to survival. And the more people that we can educate, the better off the public is going to be.
That's great.
So education is really the key for everybody. So the more people that we can reach out and touch during this event, I think the better off the public's going to be in a situation where a cardiac event would come uprise and someone has to jump in and save a life.
So again, the charity event that's going to be held at the Room will help fund that, as well as help fund some parts for the maintenance of existing AEDs and possibly some new AEDs coming in. So that's going to be great. So getting back, let's talk a bit about more of the event itself and what happens, when it's going to be.
So our friend Chad Mullins, he is the owner of the Room. And we approached him. We wanted a space big enough to attract some people, and they've got a stage. It's a great facility for events like this. And so I play in what I would sort of call a band, if we were really a band, but we kind of play together. A garage band, well, basement band to be more specific. But you know, we don't really play out or anything like that. And we know a lot of friends, and they have a lot of friends in the community who are musicians. And so we thought, you know, the best way to help raise some money is to provide a good night of entertainment. You know, bring some people out, they have a good time, it's for a good cause. And so we've asked a couple of bands to come and play for us. So my friend John Hendricks has a band, Chronic Flannel. They've been great and have agreed to play for us and headline. They play a range of music from 70s, 80s, 90s, more recent music, good fun party music. And so they're going to headline the event. And then one of the other bands that we have playing is a band called Scummy Fish. And they're a band of some students from Highland High School from back in the 80s, friends of my brother and some folks that we know from Highland. So mid-80s or so in Highland, and they're getting together for a reunion.
The big hair era, as I used to call it.
Well, yeah, a little bit before that, but yeah.
Yeah, talking about hair, I apologize saying glare that you guys are seeing. But this isn't Joe Rogan, this is Bill Moran. I just want to clear that up. If they feel like they tuned in the wrong podcast, I just want to make sure.
So we've got Chronic Flannel, we've got Scummy Fish, and then of course our band's going to open the night, which we used to be called the Sharpies because it's my brother and I and some other friends of ours, and so we got labeled the Sharpies, and we tried to object to that name, like we didn't really want the band about us, so they decided to change the band name to the Dullies. So, you know, I don't know how far we got from the original name, but in any event, the night's going to have, you know, it's a $10 donation at the door, and it's 3 bands, music. The event runs from 6 to midnight. Bands will come on a little bit after 7, and we've got some silent auction, you know, things along those lines to help generate some additional money for the cause, and we hope it'll be a lot of fun.
Now, your hopes beyond this event are to continue fundraising after the event?
You know, ideally we would love to do this on a yearly basis. You know, there's other events that have been kind of hosted throughout the region. Record Off is one that I can think of. Joanne Lane has put that together. You know, that's something that goes on every year and helps to raise money. And so I kind of thought that, you know, this would be a nice thing to be able to continue doing this, because obviously CPR training isn't a one-time and done type of event. It's something you've got to kind of keep up on. And so I think it's important to, if we can, try and make sure that we can do this on a yearly basis. Hopefully get a rotating cast of bands so Lion doesn't have to play anymore. But ideally it would be nice to get other bands in it as well.
That'd be awesome. It's a good start. It's a good start. So with that, why don't we go through and talk about what people expect. What is the ticket amount at the gate?
It's a $10 donation at the door.
All right.
And, you know, we've been lucky enough to get some sponsors to help us, and we're always looking for more sponsors. But some of the sponsors are providing some food and snacks along those lines. It's not a dinner by any means. We're not serving people dinner, but we want to keep costs pretty modest, get people out. So $10 donation at the door. And then, of course, there's some silent auction activity that people can participate in.
That sounds like fun times.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward. Kelly and I are gonna definitely got it on our calendar already. Maybe we could show up with the camera and take some video with what goes on. So, anything else you want to share before we wrap up the show? Any?
I think the one thing that we hope to also kind of get out of this event is, like for instance with my experience, it's important for people to, check with their doctor before they start working out again. Something that I was under the care of a cardiologist and a doctor when this happened, and we knew about, the family history, and I was on blood pressure medication and all that sort of thing, and it really goes to show that when you've got a family history and some pre-existing conditions along those lines, it's really important to make sure that you're staying in touch with the doctor, making sure you're getting checked out, because kind of no matter what, this was going to happen to me. It was just a matter of when and what was going to trigger, right? So the fact that I was kind of on medicine, seeing doctors, had worked out, and happened to be in a place where there was an AED device, and luckily people there to perform the CPR, because that's really what helps the survival chances, because somebody's got to be kind of awake and alive to be able for that to work. So the staff that helped do that CPR, that was instrumental in me being able to survive, and really I've been able to survive with zero damage to the heart because of the CPR that was done.
Can I ask you, what was your lifestyle like before the heart attack, and how has it changed since?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, I think I had been a runner, more of a plotter. Somebody my size, I don't run fast or far, but one of the things that I had been really good about earlier was exercising, eating right. I'd been familiar with a heart-healthy diet since I was a kid. My father had a heart attack. And when I started working out and running back in about 2010 or so, 2011, I was able to get myself off of blood pressure medication and had stayed up with my doctor and everything. Coincidentally, he moved away, and so I stopped going. I was healthy at the time, and then there was kind of this slow decline where I wasn't running as much, and I wasn't eating as healthy, and I fell back into some bad habits. I was a smoker for a while, and I was staying up late working and job stress and things like that, and kind of lost perspective. And that's why I was trying to get back into shape. So I had quit smoking, I had been exercising, and I think that's a big reason why the doctors weren't really as concerned as you would think they would be for something like this to happen, to have a widowmaker heart attack. But since the heart attack, obviously it changes your focus. So I'm on a heart-healthy diet, low sodium. That's one thing I wasn't paying any attention to, is how much sodium is in some of the food that I was eating. I mean, anything packaged or boxed or processed, any fast food, even when you're at a restaurant, it's really difficult to stay true to a heart-healthy diet, a low-sodium diet. So that's been a big change. Maintaining exercise, staying up on medications, obviously, that's an important part of it. And really paying attention to stress. Stress and the amount of sleep that I get is because I think that, when you're more mindful of those things, and we've all got stress in our life for different reasons, but when you kind of succumb to that, you kind of like, the day was so stressful. And that's when you start getting into danger. And when you're more mindful and you kind of draw that line in the sand of, I'm not going to go that far with this, or I've got to look out for myself, I would say that's a big part of what I do now. But diet, exercise, and just being mindful of what's going on in my life.
Can I ask Chris something?
Yeah.
When people go through this training and they know how to do it, is there a reluctance though? You stepped in to save his life, but is there any reluctance to you may end up hurting the person even more because you're not a paramedic? And
it comes down to basics. The paramedics they have the cardiac drugs, but basics are really they're the key to survival. It's being able to circulate the blood and do that correctly. Recognizing the problem, doing chest compressions, and that's the key. So all the additional training is great, but it starts out first with someone doing good compressions. We teach a lot of compression only, so we're not even worried about mouth to mouth anymore. It's compression only. Good compressions, consistently, good quality will save somebody's life, and it's all about life after the event. Being able to not allowing the death of the muscles of the heart tissues, getting that blood to circulate is absolutely the key.
And it doesn't feel good, I'll tell you that.
Okay, yeah, and
To do chest compressions for the first time, it's frightening. It's frightening. I mean, you hear some strange sounds when you're pushing on the chest, and for someone who's never done that before, it's certainly a feeling and sounds you'll never forget. But you can't be scared. You have to stay calm. You have to be able to do it and do it correctly.
Was there any reluctance on your part to jump in to try to save this man?
Well, by the time I was called in and made it into the fitness center, like I said, Aziza and Ron were on either side of Mark performing compressions at that time. And this man's face and head was completely purple. So there was no question that compressions was needed, and I needed to grab the AED as soon as I saw that. There was no hesitation on my part, and I know on Ron and Aziza's. From what I'm told, Aziza tried to perform compressions on you, and you're a bigger guy.
I'm a big guy.
She's a petite lady, and she could not fully compress to is it 1 inch? Is it 2 inches? 2 inches. 2 inches you're supposed to get down.
It's 2 inches.
She wasn't able to hit that mark, so Ron, thankfully, bigger guy,
Bigger than me.
close to 300 pounds probably, was able to put his entire weight into your chest to get those compressions.
Giving CPR is not an easy task.
Right.
So they're really the three keys is to start CPR, to get an AED, and call 911. Those are the three main keys. You need to get help on the way, and you need to start chest compressions. And the AED is simple to use. You turn it on, it talks to you, it tells you exactly what to do.
And that's exactly what it did. We hooked it up exactly where the pads show to put it.
Right.
And it did its thing. It shocked him twice, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
So it told you when a shock needs to be administered and when to back away. Because obviously we didn't want to get shocked as well. So.
Yeah, and the AED actually tells you that during the automated process.
Absolutely.
And I still remember the 911 operator saying, "Oh, is that the automated voice from the AED?" And I said, "Yes, it is."
The 911 scenario, it can be frustrating calling 911 because they ask a lot of questions, but know that help is on its way. But answer their questions. It's very important to answer their questions because they're going to relay all that information to the paramedics that are on their way so that we can better be prepared for the situation that we arrive to. So it's very important. Don't get frustrated with the 911 operator. They're asking questions, but know that their help is on the way while they're asking questions.
It's for a reason. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Looking at that time, once they rolled, I mean, everyone was there within minutes. I remember that they heard the AED. We had a police officer to escort the ambulance. The ambulance arrived at the same time. So remarkable teamwork by Highland and the ambulance service. So,
and it felt like an eternity, but I look back at the cameras and it was about 3.5 minutes until
exactly.
From the time that you went down to the time that the medics came there.
When you're in the moment, though, it feels like an eternity, and you're worried. But it was probably the most awesome piece of teamwork from the staffing to the police to the paramedics that showed up.
The paramedics that actually stopped my wife, Brenda, at the hospital and said, you really need to thank the people at Lincoln Center because without them stepping in with CPR, that I probably wouldn't have made it.
I mean, from what your wife told us, that once you got in and checked out, I mean, this was a widowmaker.
Yes.
And so
What was interesting about that too is that when I was in the hospital and I woke up, it was in the, kind of the emergency room. Everybody's, running around doing their thing, and then there's a point where I'm stable and I'm kind of waking up. I'm still a little groggy, and I was conscious, but wasn't really recalling what was going on. And they had left and had brought my brother Matt and my wife Brenda into the room, and I felt fine. I felt absolutely fine, except it did feel like a car had run over me from Ron's compressions. But beyond that, I kept thinking to myself, because I knew at the moment that I had a heart attack. We didn't know how severe it was or what the cause was at the time, but we knew that it was a heart attack, a cardiac event. And so I felt fine, and that was on a Friday night, and I went all the way until Monday morning, until they took me to the cath lab, because we wanted to wait for my doctor, and just kind of, I was feeling good, so they didn't see a need to advance things that fast. And we went in there, and my doctor even said, I don't know that we'll find anything. It seems like maybe this is an electrical issue, but we'll see. And sure enough, you're awake for an angiogram. You're there. You need to communicate with them. And I'm sitting there, and he found the blockage, which was a 99% blockage in the LAD, the left heart anterior
coronary artery.
Yep. And that feeds two sections of the heart. Basically supplies the heart with blood to pump. And it was a 99% block. And so they were able to put in a stent, open up that blood flow, and a couple months later, when we went back for a checkup, the doctor showed us the video of that procedure, and there's like just this one little line of blood going in, real small, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, we're putting the balloon in, we've opened it up, we put the stent in, we've opened it up again, we've taped everything out. He's like, watch this next thing. And it was like a highway of blood. What was a sidewalk turned into a 4-lane, highway. And it was amazing to see that.
And here up to that point, you thought that you were healthy. You were pretty much yeah.
No signs, nothing. Now, of course, I look back on it now, and I can see that there's a lot of things that I was feeling and thinking that I probably should have done something about.
Like what?
Well, so for instance, I frequently had a feeling of, I don't want to say tightness in my chest, because it wasn't that. It wasn't tightness, but it was like, I would feel like I'd have to like I wanted to stretch. And it was really subtle, and it wasn't anything like, oh, I should go get that checked out. It's like, man, I feel like I got tightness, but I didn't have any increased breathing. I wasn't winded. I was still running at the time. I mean, I was actively exercising, and didn't really think anything about it. And I was getting some fluid retention in my legs, but I sit all day. I've got a desk job. I sit all day, and if I wasn't taking lunch or anything, that's what happens, especially as you get older. And a lot of these things, I thought, that's just what being over 40 feels like. I didn't think much of it, but now I look back on it, I don't have any of those feelings, and I think, wow, I knew something was going on, but it never really registered at a point where, oh, I better go to the doctor and get this checked out. I was in the doctor's care. I was telling the doctor about this, and even the doctor was kind of like, I think it's this, don't worry, I think it's that. Good, competent doctor, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't present as somebody who was in that grave of danger.
But did your doctor say, they said those were telltale signs of a possible heart attack, or even not necessarily?
No, because, even if I would have gone into the hospital, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you know this, but one of the first things they would have done is an EKG, right? And if that rhythm shows normal, they're going to send you home and with a big bill, And so they were able to see tests from years previous. They kind of had a sense of what was going on, but I was doing the right things. I was doing everything I should have been doing, so there wasn't a real reason to think that this was going to happen. Now, it's virtually impossible to pinpoint exactly what happened, but more than likely, my heart rate got a little bit high, not enough blood was getting to the heart, and it just started to spasm. That's kind of what I think happened, but of course I'm not a doctor, but I think that's kind of what.
So this is
What was your recovery time like, or recovery period, and are you back now to regular exercise?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I went to, so this happened April 27th, 2 weeks, virtually 2 weeks, I was at the Cubs White Sox game.
Rooting for the Sox, right?
Exactly.
Yes!
Exactly.
hold it.
I don't think it mattered at the time, but they didn't amount to much. But yeah, and so I was able. My doctor said basically like go back to normal. He's like, you're not gonna want to. You're gonna be, you're gonna go through some episodes and things like that, and I did. Where it's, you start to think about everything after that, and started cardiac rehab a month afterwards. Finished that in August. Was able to run the pumpkin plod race with the Highland Police Department on Thanksgiving Day. Was able to run the 5K for that, and now I run, close to 2 miles about 6 times a week. Work out, as much as I possibly can, and feel great. I mean, honestly, I feel great. So it's been an interesting recovery. You go through a lot of stages. You go through, boy, I'm lucky to be alive stage. Then you go through the, I better do everything I possibly can to stay alive. So I watched what I ate, I exercised, and then you get to, for me, it was the holidays, and it's my doctor saying, just be normal. Like go back to normal. Don't think about this. You're young enough. You've got this behind you. You can kind of go back to normal, and then you take that a little bit too much to heart and say, oh yeah, of course I can go back to normal. But then, now I'm kind of in that phase where I've done everything. I know what overboard looks like. I know what letting go looks like a little bit. The holidays were nice. But now it's kind of like getting back into that swing of things.
And you do have history of heart problems in your family, like you said.
So when I was about 32-ish, my grandmother had passed away, and we were there for the service, and my uncle had pulled me aside, and my brothers, who are a little bit older than me, and they said, guys, if you haven't already, you need to go see a cardiologist. And he ran through a list of cousins and uncles who had passed away from widowmaker heart attacks in particular, or had heart attacks. My dad had a heart attack, and he said they had all had heart attacks too, and they said, you need to go get checked out because we've got it in the family. You're going to deal with it at some point. Get ahead of the curve. And I did. I took that to heart, and so we were able to get ahead of it.
If you have advice to give to anyone, particularly if they had heart problem history in their family,
go
see it. And I know, and I'm guilty as anyone, you get to that 50th birthday and I'm fine, I feel fine.
Yeah.
And no, it's something you really ought to consider doing. In fact, I was told you on the air today that if my doctors are listening to this, because I'll get a call asking where the scripts were that he wrote. So it has definitely made me rethink, and both myself and Kelly, about what we do, how we eat, and it's anyone out there listening to this should take note. And if you haven't seen a doctor, go see it, because you could be feeling perfectly fine, and next thing you know. With that, I think we better wrap up the show. Let's go over again for people the time and the date. Date's April 27th.
Yeah, April 27th at the Room in Highland. I believe the address is 8355 Indianapolis Boulevard in Highland. It's north of Indianapolis and Ridge Road in the strip mall that Ultra used to be located in, right across from Wicker Park. There's a bar on one side called Hoses and Cups, and it's connected to the Room. And so it's a large venue, great place to see live music, and $10 at the door, and the event starts at 6 o'clock.
You're on Facebook, do a search for Music for the Heart.
Music for the Heart.
And more information will be posted there. And also, if you'd like to just tell them you're going, I'm pretty sure they'd appreciate that.
And we're always looking for more sponsors too. So if anybody wants to be generous and help out, help a good cause, we're more than happy to take additional donations.
Definitely. Well, we'd like to thank you all for being on the show. Michael, thanks again for filling for Kelly. I may be calling you a couple more times this month. You know, the show
Kelly,
must go on.
where are you at?
Sorry. Again, Kelly's in the show called the Cemetery Club. And
that's right.
She plays a Jewish New Yorker, which she's got down pat. So with that, we would like to thank you all for participating. And if you can make it, put it on your calendar. And until then, we wish you all a safe week and weekend.